Oh why hello there, I'm Slimevorous, and today we'll be doing something a bit unusual, and you probably already know because of the title, so let's dive into the Slime Rancher Iceberg. Thanks to you/Gastrodoggo for making this chart. For each item on the list, I'll have a number up. The higher it is, the more confidence I have for what I'm talking about. For example, a 100 means I know exactly what I'm talking about, and a 0 means just the opposite. And as just a warning, this will contain spoilers for the story of the game, so please be advised if you've yet to play through the game in its entirety yet. I know you've probably heard this way too many times, but please be sure to consider subscribing. Not now though, wait until the video is over. Subscriptions should be earned. And with that out of the way, let's get started. The Twinkle Slime is a very rare slime that appears in the game once a year for an event called Wiggly Wonderland. It spawns in 12 different locations over 12 different days, and when approached, it bursts and places chimes in the immediate area. While the player is going through the storyline of the wilds in Odgen, he mentions that when he was back on Earth, he used to head an insta-food company that essentially designed food at a massive scale using chemicals and preservatives. He eventually left this behind to grow his own food on the far range. The theory that the game puts forward due to the giant structures made all over the far range, mainly in the ancient ruins in the Glass Desert, were made by an ancient civilization a very long time ago. The Glass Desert is covered in these closed flowers called oases, which require you to find a fountain and back up ancient water. You then have to travel over to an oasis and shoot ancient water at it, which activates it and covers the surrounding area in vegetation and slimes, and a giant tar-repelling bubble. The Slimepedia says that these activated oases show how the Glass Desert once used to look like. The saber slimes that spawn in the wilds always spawn as largos, and they never spawned as actual pure saber slimes. The Slimepedia hints that they went extinct long ago, leaving only their larva forms behind. The VR Playground is a special DLC for Slime Rancher that allows the player to explore the game in virtual reality using a modified map. The game is set to a sandbox mode with the player having no health bar, making them impervious to dangerous slimes. There is also no plort market, and plorts despawn much faster, so they can only be used to make largos. There are 4 different areas, with the lab being the hub, and having teleporters that connect to heavily modified and sized down versions of the dry reef, musk blanket, and ancient ruins. There's a way in the game where you can catch a golden slime. First, you have to get a gilded ginger, which spawn in the Glass Desert. Then you need to hook it up to a Gordo snare and wait for a gold Gordo to spawn. Then you must get 3 more gilded gingers and pop the Gordo. Before you pop the Gordo, have a slime stage near the Gordo, and once you pop the Gordo, just hope that a gold slime runs onto the slime stage, and voila, you caught a gold slime. Hobson Twilgers is the person who previously owned the ranch before Beatrix did. You can find his messages scattered throughout the map, which usually tell minor details about him. At the end of the game, he says he is going to go through a portal to travel space and time, however, he changes his mind due to a love for another rancher, Thora West. As far as we know, he resides at her ranch. The meteor slime is a scrap slime that was originally supposed to spawn in the Glass Desert and would fall from the sky during meteor storms. The slime had a bright purple and yellow design. On occasion, it would start attracting items within a certain radius and then would give them low gravity for a small amount of time. The slime was ultimately scrapped because it wouldn't make sense on the ranch, and the mosaic slimes already served a similar purpose. Bob is an NPC that gives the player trade requests, usually asking for chickens. The character seems to be a few pink slimes badly disguising themselves as a rancher. The character's dialogue consists of gibberish and misspellings of the word chicken. Mustache Island is a hidden island that is blocked by a teleporter, and it contains many statues of slimes with mustaches, and has a treasure pod containing the mustache fashion pod. The island also sometimes has a party Gordo on it. Slime jump could refer to 2 things, when a slime jumps, or when the player shoots the slime under them and jumps off it to get to a higher area. The Gilded ginger is a very rare food item, of which only 2 spawn each in-game day in 2 random spots in the glass desert. The food is also the favorite food of the gold slime and can be used to pop gold gordos. Sub-areas are smaller cells inside of a biome. For example, the dry reef is filled with sub-areas, like Tabbyland. It is home to loads of tabby slimes and hosts a tabby gordo. It also links to the moss blanket entrance. After the player finishes the story, Hobson opens up 3 vaults all over the map. One in the dry reef on the Ring Island, one in the moss blanket in the Feral Path, and the last one in the Indigo Quarry on the Ash Isle. These vaults have tons upon tons of gold plorts located in tier 3 treasure pods, and if you have all of the plorts from these and sell them, they will result in a minimum gain of 41,000 new bucks or a maximum gain of 265,000 new bucks. I did some digging and I couldn't find anything on this. I also had no prior knowledge of this, so this is something I have absolutely no clue about. I think this could be referring to a whole number of things, maybe the hidden areas in the VR playground, maybe just previously inaccessible areas, and many other things. In 170 Star Mail, it mentions how your new bucks support a charity that supposedly promotes otter awareness. Maybe in the timeline of Slime Rancher, otters are going extinct? Just a thought. The Slime Sea functions as the game's border, keeping the player from going too far. The Slimepedia states that the slimes that fall into it can be seen coming out of the sea later, supporting the fact that it only hurts the ranchers. Maybe the Slime Sea itself is the slime? Just a theory, sadly. The asteroid is an unused prop featured in the prototype beach, which was present in the game from versions 0.2.0 to 0.3.1. The area was essentially a clone of the dry reef, however it featured some okas which don't grow in the dry reef. The prop's textures and meshes are fully intact inside the game's files. Prior to version 0.3.0, all of the NPCs had extremely odd mugshots, which honestly resembled what a child would have drawn. These weird mugshots were changed after version 0.3.0 into more detailed shots, and those were then changed again in version 1.1.0 to the ones we know and love today. The party fashion pod is the attire used by the party Gordo, not to be confused with the other party fashion pod, which lacks the hat. The pod doesn't use a standard fashion pod slot and is unobtainable through legitimate means. If modded in, its bar shows up as black and displays an image needed icon, but it works as intended. In one of the game's loading screen texts, it talks about a cube-shaped slime. This could be referring to many different things, but it could be a reference to the developer's other game, Spiral Knights, and one of its enemies called the Jelly. In the Slimepedia entry for the Saber Slimes, it mentions how it is a remnant of the Jurassic period, suggesting that pure Saber Slimes died off long ago, leaving only the Largos behind. Also, the Saber Slime's secret style, pre-Jurassic, seems to reference this. This is most likely talking about how Beatrix as a character seems to allude to a honeybee, from the first syllable of her name, the abdomen-length backpack attachment on her back, the default color scheme of her tech, and even her job as a rancher, all suggesting her character design probably took inspiration from a honeybee. In the prototype versions of the game, prior to the game's early access release in version 0.2.0 and only shortly after, there were prototype versions of the different areas with only a small amount of changes from what is currently in the game. There were 4 different prototype areas in the game at one point: the ranch, the dry reef, the Indigo Quarry, and the ancient ruins prototypes. Tatsuya Miles is the father of Mochi Miles and is the most likely well-known person due to his status as a billionaire. It is also likely that Mochi and her father are not on the best of terms due to her being sent to the Far Range for no apparent reason. Ravians are the only fauna found on the Far Far range not present in the slime category. They exhibit a very bizarre flying pattern, usually flying in circles above the areas they spawn: the overgrowth, the wilds, Odgen's retreat, and various places in the moss blanket. They are, color-wise, divided in two, with their tops being bright white and their undersides being various shades of orange, yellow, blue, and purple. They serve no other purpose than decoration, as they cannot be interacted with. Shower is an unused gadget planned to be released in version 0.4.0. The gadget had to be activated manually, and once activated would release a pulse every half second, which dealt 20% the damage of regular water in a radius of roughly 3 rad auras. As a result, it would take 5 pulses to remove a tar in the day, and double that at night. The gadget would stop after 10 pulses were fired and took about a minute to recharge. The gadget is fully functional but has a very simplistic model. Iron Rancher mode was a difficulty setting intended to give a challenge for the normal game. It was planned to be released in version 1.4.0 and featured numerous gameplay alterations. These alterations included: chickens become feral at night, 5% chance for a tar to spawn randomly at night, 10% chance for a slime to produce a plort unlike its own, slime spawns increased by 30%, slimes get hungry twice as fast, and plorts explode after 30 seconds. Honestly, I'm kinda sad this was never added, but then again, I can see how the random plorts could be exploited, so I guess that's a downside. Casey is the special someone of Beatrix back on Earth, and they occasionally send her star mail over the course of the game. Other than providing a little story element, they don't really serve any purpose besides advancing the story of the game. Starfire rum is an unknown food item that Odgen mentions a few times in passing, never touching on it directly. For example, one of his dialogue bits on the range exchange mentions that Starfire rum is an ingredient in his party punch. Other than this, the other mentions of it have little information and just say that it exists. All I could find about this is that in one of Hobson's notes, he mentions that when he was in the Far Far range, the moss blanket resembled a barren wasteland, maybe like the Glass Desert. The Puddle Gordo is an object referenced in some of the game's files, although it has no identifiable model or in-game object associated with it. This might be referring to how in the early stages of the game, there's a planned NPC who is named Bob, no relation to the other Bob who is made of pink slimes, who trades slimes for slimes. This is talking about how some concept art for the game had designs for slimes that were cat-like in appearance, but didn't seem to fully resemble either the tabby, saber, or hunter slimes. We can see two here. The one on the bottom left looks like a reskinned tabby slime but with the hunter slime's ears, and the one on the bottom right resembles a saber with minor design changes. We all know the tar, but I couldn't find anything on the slime life cycle. There are a couple of unused utilities hidden in the game's files that were originally supposed to be Tier 2 gadgets. These included the Rapid Med Station, Super Hydro Turret, Super Hydro Shower, and Elite Taming Bell. Of all of these, only the Super Hydro Turret has been added, and all of the others only have a name and tier attached to them. I'm not entirely sure what this is talking about. It might be talking about the ghost that Quantum Slimes release, but other than that, I'm unsure. In the game, there exists a fully functioning treasure cracker for pods of Tier 4, but it can only be accessed by modding the game. It currently serves no purpose as there are no treasure pods of Tier 4 in the game. Here is my representation of what it might look like. This is probably referring to how the moon in-game has a slime face on it, so it could be a slime, but even if it was, I don't see how this would change much. Currently, there are 27 obtainable chroma packs in the game, including the 2 console exclusive ones. However, there are files present for 4 other ones. These include a copy of the Ruby chroma pack, the Amethyst chroma pack, one with no discernible name and data, and the Onyx chroma pack. The Amethyst and Copied Ruby packs are both set to unlock at 7Z level 9999, rendering them unobtainable, although they are both fully functional. The Onyx pack was originally introduced with the Scuba pack, but shortly removed afterward. This is probably referring to the early concept art for the glass desert slimes, and how it featured a slime resembling a tangle slime but more detailed, aptly named the bubble slime. The VR Playground map is split into 4 areas: the hub, the dry reef, the moss blanket, and the ancient ruins. The hub is very similar to the barn of the lab. It contains 3 teleporters to the other areas. The dry reef contains 3 pre-built plots, 2 corrals, and a coop. The moss blanket contains the same plots as before, and also has a hidden area. The ancient ruins also has the same plots as before, and also contains phase lemon trees that will never go invisible, unlike the main game. I'm pretty sure that this is referencing one of the splash texts featured on the loading screen, which says, "Rumor has it, Victor invented a plort cloning technology, and then destroyed it." Weather, or more specifically rain, is a decorative feature in which it would have a chance to, well, rain every 3 to 12 endgame hours. It is a cosmetic feature and would sadly not damage tars. It was featured in-game until version 0.2.0 when it was disabled. It can still be enabled in the game's files and works as intended. This is probably referring to how in the prototype stages of the game, so pre-version 0.2.0, didn't have a vac pack model but instead used the Medigun from Team Fortress 2 as a placeholder. Honestly, I've got almost no clue what this might be talking about. It might be referring to the planned NPC we talked about earlier with the name of Bob, but other than that, I've got nothing. Prior to version 0.2.2, there existed a debug menu in the game, which allowed the devs to easily test the game. In the prototype versions of the game, there existed a very basic tar model resembling a freshly exploded boom slime, and one that's feral. There is an unused variable found in the game's code which would affect the Tangle Slime's ability to produce pollen clouds. It was most likely cut due to a more simplistic option being available. Just like the above, quantum vibration levels is an unused variable that helped to determine when the quantum slime could teleport. It was later cut in favor of a more simplistic option. All I could find referencing this is that the texture for primordial oil seems to bear a strong resemblance to the tar. In the game, there are actually 2 defined spots on a slime that a fashion pod can take. Either the face, which is the slot that all the pods in-game take, or the top, which is just above the face. The top is unused and can only be activated through mods. And with that, we'll end this off. If you guys know what any of the topics that had a 0 on them meant, please put it down in the comments. And also, you might have noticed, but this is the first video of mine with commentary. Also, for sticking around this long, here's a fun fact. Slimes in the range of tangle slimes that are showing pollen clouds have a chance to show a sneezing animation.